I was wondering, how did Spookies get on your radar, like to do a special edition DVD? Because like, listen, I'll be honest with you, I've been telling people since I was 11 years old about this movie.
There's
And like some people love it, some people it's not their cup of tea. But like, was there like employees, or like do you guys do a like a voting thing, or like how is it came on Vinegar Syndrome's radar?
Well, there's kind of two parts of that question. But as far as the Blu-ray, Glenn and I have done a few things for Vinegar Syndrome before, and so I always told the people over there, let us know if there's anything else you're working on, especially that was shot in the New York area, because we're around here and we can do location stuff. So I remember Brandon from Vinegar Syndrome one day saying, "I got a good project for you guys. I'm going to let you know what it is soon." And when he said it was Spookies, I was like, "Well, that's perfect," because Glenn and I have both known Tom and or well, so here's the thing: I knew Tom and Brendan from back in the '80s when I was a teenager, and I was
Okay.
actually aware of Hellspawn and Twisted Souls and what happened to Spookies. And so, years later, when Brendan said he wanted to do something, they're going to do the disc, I said that was perfect because I kind of knew all the background and I was still in touch with a lot of the people who worked on it.
Yeah, for me, the first time I had seen Spookies, I mean, I remember it from video stores when I was a kid, but I had never seen it
Yeah.
until about a year or so before Peter Iacillo Jr. and Tom Doran had passed away. And we showed it at the Alamo Draft House in Yonkers. So I saw it, fell in love with the movie because I heard just how batshit crazy the story was behind it. And it was kind of a bit of a controversial thing because, at the time, Tom Doran had heard about it and he contacted me because I was the webmaster for Hudson Horror. And he said, "Well, what the hell?" He goes, "Why wasn't I invited?" And I didn't know a lot of the people involved. And so, long story short, we ended up becoming very friendly, very chatty. We had a number of great conversations on the phone. And I had turned at one point and I said to Tom, I said, "Hey, I really want to do a documentary on Spookies." And he goes, "I wish you the best of luck, but I'm actually in the process of putting together a book about it. So, God bless you, but I'm going to save the best stories for me." And then so, yeah, it kind of fell off my radar. I'm like, well, if the director's not going to help, it's kind of like, So it kind of fell off my radar for a little while, and then we fell out of touch. And then I learned afterwards that he'd passed away. And Peter, actually, I think within the space of a year, both of them had passed away.
Right.
So it was kind of funny because fast forward to 2019 and Frank Frank and I started talking and he goes, "I really want to do this documentary. I've been kind of doing some work on trying to get something together, a release." And right at the same time, Vinegar contacted us and like, "Hey, you still have that footage that you shot from Hudson Horror, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then boom, and I was like, the stars just aligned, and it was just the timing was right. And God bless Frank because Frank could have said, "Hey guys, go screw yourself. We're doing this on our own." But Frank and Cecilia and Doran and Brendan Faulkner just so accommodating. Everybody that's in that documentary so accommodating. But Frank especially, I have never seen somebody that has more stuff for a movie that old that I mean it's an independent movie that just hung on to everything. Thank God, because I mean when you
Well,
see
and
the amount of stuff that is in the documentary and on that disc, it's mind blowing that all of that stuff still exists.
And that's about
and I'm amazed that you were so complimentary to me about that because all I can think about is the things that I did lose and no longer have.
stuff you see on the disc in both the documentary and in the stills gallery is probably about 10% of what Frank provided us.
Yeah.
He was Dropboxing me endless amounts of stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
so much stuff to choose
I
from.
mean, I've shot my own movies. I don't think I have a fraction of stuff from my own movies is what you guys hung out to. And, I look at the age of the movie and you still have, and not only that, I mean, if you look at the props and we show photos inside the documentary, I mean, Cecilia, for example, still had the Ouija board and it looks like it was just made in mint condition. I mean, even the mummy sarcophagus
Well,
that
that was the
Brendan held
amazing
on to,
thing.
it's just everything
Yeah.
was still in pristine condition. The headstones. So, it's just they weren't weather worn from all those years too. That was the other thing that just blew my mind.
And the other thing
Yeah,
is that
the
when
photos Glenn sent me, look, the stuff looks brand new. No, you're absolutely right. absolutely right.
The other thing is that when we started on this, we assumed we were going to do maybe like a half hour to 40-minute featurette talking to Brandon and Frank and Cecilia. And then I started tracking down people, and Glen knew a couple of people. And then I had some friends among the effects artists who were out in LA. And before we knew it, we had 14 interviewees, and we were like, this is not just a featurette. This is going to be a feature-length documentary. Yeah. And we had, I think from the time we got the go-ahead to final delivery, we had 3.5 months to put this thing together, which is insane for a 100-minute doc.
And I mean, and if I might say, we were we who did Twisted Souls, which became Spookies, we're so lucky to have these guys on this project for so many reasons, because it could have turned out far below expectations. And they really came through with just flying colors. I really feel that they were able to tell our story in a way that I mean, most of the facts were there. The general attitude was there. They made an attempt to be fair. They did attempt to get a hold of and include Jeannie Joseph, who was the person who was the writer-director of all the new material, and she did not respond until quite recently, apparently.
Yeah, well, we reached out to her in June through every avenue we had, and literally just a month ago, finally heard back from her. And this came out, for Black Friday, so it's like, a
bit late.
There
were other things like, for example, the great thing is that a lot of the people who worked on it are still in this area, so they're easily accessible. But at one point, I started going through the credits to see who else I might not have thought of to talk to. And I saw that the sound effects guy was named Brian O'Hara. And I was like, I knew a filmmaker named Brian O'Hara who used to live in this area. And I had covered one of his movies when I was at Fangoria. So I sent him a Facebook message saying, just out of curiosity, are you the same Brian O'Hara who did sound effects on Spookies? And the first thing he comes back with is, yeah, I'm the guy who put the farts in the Muckman scene, which is the most notorious scene in the movie.
Yeah.
So he was in LA, but I was like, dude, you have to put yourself on camera talking about this and tell the whole story of how the farts got in the Muckman scene. And that's some of the funniest stuff in the whole doc.
Yeah. I mean, there has been some people raise the question like, well, why weren't some other people involved? I mean, in truth, like Mike said, I mean, we started out where it was a half an hour, it went to an hour. I mean, finally, at one point, they said, well, you have 85 minutes. And then when they started seeing the footage, they gave us, a little bit longer. But there's just, we had over 14, 15 hours of footage. There's just no way we could have gotten everything in.
I was so happy that you really saw that there was a longer story to tell.
Yeah.
And that Vinegar Syndrome was willing to give the disc space to it.
And there were so many more people we would have liked to have got involved. Some people we couldn't reach. Some people there just wasn't timing or resources at that point to do, or just because of space on the disc. So, but I think we stand behind. I speak for myself and probably for Mike as well. But I think we stand behind ourselves that that we're happy with the story that was told. I think you guys were the underdogs. Of the story, and it's really what can happen. To independent filmmakers when, whether it's the big system or even, a financier takes the reins, you're not always protected. These are the horrors that can happen with independent film.
Well, this is something that I've learned because I've written a few independent horror films myself. And, coming up when I was growing up and going to film school, the thing you think is, well, the studios is where there's lots of compromise and meddling and interference, and independent filmmaking is freedom and you get to do whatever you want. And what I found through my own experiences, you can have just as much producer and financier interference and meddling on the micro budget level as you do on the studio level. And Spookies is kind of exhibit A of that idea.
Well, I mean, and one of the reasons why I also loved, the movie and the story more so behind it is I could personally identify with it, and I've said, I think we say this on the commentary. I've said it on the commentary. I mean, my first released movie was almost shelved because, and I quote, the company that was distributing said, well, I want more tits and ass in it. So go back on your own dime and reshoot the thing, or we're shelving it. So, I had to reshoot an opening that to this day I'm not thrilled with because it's not what I wanted in it. But you make concessions. In this case, with Spookies, these guys didn't have the opportunity to make concessions. The movie was just ripped away from them.
Well, no, to tell the truth, we were making concessions from the minute we met Michael Lee. We never stopped making concessions. We had to basically give in to him constantly, or at least find some way to justify things that we wanted that he was skeptical about. But ultimately, the thing is, like I said, we signed away our rights. He had the final say in everything, no matter what, and all we could do is go with our instincts and with our intentions.
Okay. Yeah. Now, well, you hear a lot of stuff about that sometimes about, making cuts or having to do additional things to your film that you don't want to. What was it when the film premiered? I mean, we can get into like the nitty gritty about what went wrong or whatever what happened. It's completely up to you guys. But when it first premiered, as Spookies, like, was that the first time you were seeing it as a finished film, like not from the Twisted
I
Soul?
had actually had the chance to see it. I'm also one of the producers of the film Street Trash, which you are probably familiar
Yes.
with.
Yes.
I had gone with Roy Frumkes, who's the producer of Street Trash, central producer. I had gone with him to Vestron to talk to them. They had Lightning Pictures, their subdivision at the time, that was looking to do sort of, more bizarre and out there stuff.
Oops. Did
we lose him?
Think so.
Passed on it, but we still have the tape here.
There he is.
Are we
Yeah,
okay?
we lost for a bit, Frank.
We lost you for like 10 seconds there. I'm sorry, man.
Oh, okay. No, let me see here. I was at Vestron Video. We were talking to them about the possible purchase of Street Trash, which they eventually did buy the rights to. And in the midst of the conversation, I mentioned Spookies, and they said, "Oh, well, we have that. We passed on it, but we had the video here." And I said, "You're kidding?" And I said, "Like, can I see it?" And so I sat there and watched it. And before they started it, I did take out my watch and I was timing like every moment of our footage versus the other footage. And I was shocked to find out that the film kept maybe 45% of our scenes, and the rest of it was new material, which was shot, as far as we could determine, primarily to get Jeannie Joseph, the woman involved, a directing credit.
Yeah. Now, all right, she man, what was it? I had a question right there. I was going to say about Jeannie Joseph. What did you think when she was brought in? Like when you
Well, I was amazed. I mean, I knew that he would,
smack.
try and do something like that. That he had to bring in someone to finish the picture, but I didn't think he would have someone who was able to quite truthfully to con him into shooting virtually an entirely new movie and cutting away a lot of footage that was the money footage, special effects, camera moves, production value that is just not in the film anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. It really is, because there's some of the stuff that they added kind of brings down the creature effects and some of the better parts of it. The spider creature. What's the story with the spider creature? Like, how many guys did it take to run that thing? Like, I've seen pictures of it. It's very tall.
I mean, it took 3 or 4 people. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was in several. I mean, each stage of it had a certain amount of mobility and would individual versions of the creature would change up to a point, and then we'd be cutting back to the next version of the creature, etc. But once again, that's a scene. The existing version of that scene is probably like 25% of what was intended for the scene.
Oh wow!
And I still can't in my head get it straight why you would cut this stuff out.
Yeah, because the stuff's great. Like I keep saying over and over how well
there was originally a thing that we had two small mechanical spiders were built, and you see in the scene Peter Isillo, who's the actor who gets like plastered to a web, and then like a giant tarantula type thing jumps on him. There were shots of like 2 of these things on either side of the Spider Woman. Come these small wooden boxes, like they're entrant. They have openings that lift up, and these 2 spiders come out and start crawling towards him. Now, why would you cut this out?
It sounds pretty well. It sounds badass. I was gonna say, I keep flip flopping all over the place here for like Vinegar Syndrome. When you guys put out that disc, like the fans freaked out because I mean it sold out real fast.
That's
how was the reception for that?
the one unfortunate thing is because it was a surprise title, we weren't able to promote anything of what we were doing until it was actually out there. But this is a title that obviously a lot of people have been waiting for. So the moment the news came out that it was one of the surprise titles, it just blew up that weekend.
Yeah, because I mean, listen, I'm a huge fan of this movie, and I didn't even know. A buddy of mine had to send me a link to it, and I started freaking
The
out.
secret was very well kept, and apparently it was a good thing to keep it, because when it hit, there was a lot of clamor,
Yeah.
and I have to say, and once again, gratitude to Vinegar Syndrome and to Mike and to Glen, that this has made a big difference in my life at the moment. Things are starting to happen again. People are interested in talking to me, and so I'm very, very pleased with the results here.
And we were also in really good company because two of the other surprise titles were Tammy and the T-Rex and the Candy Snatchers, which are two of my favorite long unseen B movies that have long needed Blu-ray editions. So we were kind of in a great package of great titles that they put out for that Black Friday.
But that's also one of the things too that to highlight is the fact, because it was a secret title, and a lot of people don't understand, what that means is that, every Black Friday, and I think they do it even too for Memorial Day, they'll do secret titles. But the challenge is, because they're so secretive, it does make it very challenging to work around and get in touch with people and maneuver around to shoot these things when it's in that big of a veil of secrecy. I mean, you'd swear it was like the next Star Wars movie. We were really sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, for horror fans, man, it's a big deal. Like, it really is.
We have our release forms that we give to talent, and we had to add a section saying, part of the agreement is you will not discuss this, because the thing is, most discs, they'll announce them a month or 2 months in advance. No one could know about this until they were actually out there and on sale. So we had to kind of add a little NDA to our release forms for this one.
And there were a lot of people who guessed correctly that it was Spookies.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep in mind the film did not have any kind of a video release whatsoever since the first VHS in the late 80s.
That's right.
There's a couple of gray market editions that have been out there on DVD, but nothing official.
I mean, and also too, there's the meticulous detail in the restoration on it. But they lovingly do that with all of their prints. I mean, they're probably some of the best prints I see out there come out of Vinegar Syndrome. But I mean, this in particular looks like it's a brand new movie.
This is gorgeous. It's beautiful. Just
editing the footage for the documentary, we kept stopping and saying, "Oh, you can see something there that you never knew was there before."
Right.
Yeah, and I made the film, and I'm like, I'm amazed every time I look at it. There's just, especially the backgrounds. I keep looking at textures and things that were just invisible previously.
Well, now you can see in the Spider-Woman's game, you can, if you look closely, you can see the faces that are in like the kind of layer walls,
can you? Oh, really?
You really can't see them that well.
You can read a lot more of the tombstones now, and then there's a lot of scenes with the cat guy in the woods. You can actually see him, as before it was just.
Maybe we don't want to see
Joseph footage. You can see the detail of how bad the makeup is.
Yeah, you can see where it stops at the chin.
The edges around his makeup.
Yep, and there's the little kid who I always joke and say he's in a Woolworth Halloween costume, little Jawa. His face is green, but his hands aren't. Like, what the fuck, guys? Come on.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was...
It's interesting, because to tell the truth, Creon scenes are like a major portion of the movie, just Creon ruminating in his chamber. And those were probably... I'm guessing that stuff was shot in like a day.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think if you look on IMDb, that is that actor's only credit, or one of very few.
Right.
Yeah, the thing he's ever been in.
The only actor who ever did much else was Maria Pachucas, who unfortunately passed away. And...
Well, actually, the kid that plays Billy, he's done some stuff.
Oh,
too.
he has?
Yeah, he has a few credits. He's in New York City, but, he was, again, one of these people. I would have liked to have interviewed him just out of curiosity to see if he recalled, as a kid, hearing anything on the set, when the regime takeover happened. Because for me, that would have been kind of interesting. But he's one of these people that we couldn't get in touch with.
Well, there's a certain point where we were kind of like, if we can't talk to Eugenie Joseph, then it would kind of unbalance the movie.
Right.
If the documentary, if we talked about the reshoot stuff, I mean, we really wanted this to be the Twisted Souls story. And, obviously Frank and Brendan and people have their very particular opinions about Eugenie Joseph and what she did. And it might unbalance it to just have like an actor or two talk, because there's a filmmaker named Chris Ingridson who I'm friends with, and he was on the crew for the reshoot stuff. But at a certain point, I decided, well, if we can't get Jeannie Joseph on there, it's going to get kind of unbalanced. So we eventually decided, let's make this the Twisted Soul story and really celebrate what these guys did.
But we did have
that's great.
No, I actually had the interesting experience this past week of just related to this. The fellow who told me, remember, you recall I told you about the information I was getting from the set from someone I knew at the time of Jeannie's shooting, and that was from John Fasano, who was a producer who started in porn, went on to do a lot of major television work years later, and I am now in contact with his son, who told me that he passed away 2 years ago, unfortunately. But he would have been great to interview to find out those little details.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we kept coming up with this kind of thing. For example, with the whole Maria Pachucas thing, I just happened to be in touch with Debbie Rochon about something else, and the subject of Maria just happened to come up, and she told me the whole story about how this guy that she'd been involved with spread the rumor about her death, which was not true, and it just happened to come up at the time we were doing the doc, and I said, Debbie, would you mind going on camera telling Maria's story? And she did, and that adds like a whole other. That was one thing about the reshoot stuff that I thought we could and should get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a nice little addition to the project.
Yeah, one of the nice things is that stuff like that's allowed us to keep kind of throwing new surprises in. Like past the hour mark, you're still getting new interviewees showing up, and then all the marvelous stuff about Tom and who's the guy who had the footage, Glenn, of Tom and the burial and everything?
Was that John Beatty or was that?
No, from Scotland.
Beatty knew him. Keith Bradley.
Keith Bradley, yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Because John Beatty, who we were just going to talk to about playing the Muckman, then started telling us all about what happened with Tom and about laying him to rest, and that added a whole other level to it. So we kept finding out these surprises all the way through the production.
Wow. All right. Now let's see. Anything? Can you guys tell me anything about the Grim Reaper? Because he's my favorite baddie in the movie.
Oh well, he's actually a very nice fellow.
Is he? I was wondering, the guy who wore the costume.
He's got a bad rep.
I had actually met T.J. Glen, who played the Grim Reaper, on a Chris Ingridson set. This has to be about 15 or so years ago. He was in a movie called Bog People or Bog Creatures, and he was playing one of the creatures. We didn't actually get to interview him, but he's a guy who's played a bunch of creatures and character roles and low-budget.
I'll tell you a little bit that you probably are not fully aware of. In our earlier project, Hellspawn, Jim Glen was the hero.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. He was a sword-slinging character running around the haunted mansion chasing a demon.
Well, that's the other thing. Frank, you gave us so much stuff on Hellspawn. We could have probably done a separate about how.
I've had people ask me when is the Hellspawn footage coming out. So we'll see about that.
Because that was actually how I first met you guys. Because I had actually first met Arnold Gargiulo through other contacts, and then he had said, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this movie called Hellspawn that's going to shoot in Westchester with these two guys, Brendan and Tom." And so that's how I got to know Brendan and Tom, was through Arnold, because he had been working on Hellspawn. And I actually got to go to his shop in his parents' garage. I think I was only 15 or 16 at the time. And he had the full-size mock-up of the demon and all this other stuff going on. And I was like, this looks like it's going to be amazing. I'd love to get on set when it happens. And then, unfortunately, it did not happen. And then the whole Twisted Souls thing happened. And so I was kind of aware of all this stuff as it was going on back in the 80s.
Wow. Now,
yeah, we really made an effort to convince Michael that we should do Hellspawn, and our biggest point was simply that, gee, we have all this stuff that we have already paid for.
And the other thing I wanted to mention also about what Frank provided us is, long story short, Michael Lee had first asked them to finish. He wanted them to finish someone else's movie, which was a British production called The Anger, which was about half completed. And Frank actually had the full rough cut of The Anger you had it in your files, Frank, and we were actually able to put footage from that into the doc, which is something we never would have thought we could get in there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, once again, I'm glad I keep things.
Yeah, so are we.
And I'm glad VHS holds up a lot longer than people claimed.
Yeah, I mean it's rough stuff, but you can still see what's going on, and it's I wish we could have put more in, but I think we got the two little highlights of the movie in there.
Right.
No, that's that's awesome. Now, all right, there's the scene where the Grim Reaper flies, or the guy throws him off the roof and he explodes. Now, weren't there supposed to be ghosts flying around? That's what I've read. What was
Yeah.
that like? Can
Now,
you?
the original climax of the movie. Now, get this. Let me see if I can set the stage here. Simply,
Okay.
originally, because he wanted, the basic concept was that our backer wanted a monster popping out every 5 to 10 minutes at least.
Okay.
And we were going to in the climax do zombies, like have the grave, because it's the place is surrounded by a graveyard, and so zombies are supposed to rise. We were, however, then told, no, you can't have zombies because we have the video nasty problem over in England, and I can't do that, and they'll arrest me, and etc. So he insisted it had to be something else. So we made it ghosts, knowing that we had the probability of being able to do it with animation and opticals, and so it was going to be ghosts swarming around the house, and the house eventually just sort of swells up into an energy ball and disappears. But so we went with that in mind. We scripted it, we planned it. A few shots, a few random shots of it got done. Really, that was essentially the test footage of the scene. We never got past that though because we were off the project by that time. But the new director, Jeannie, I guess she heard we originally were going to do zombies, and suddenly zombies were in fashion again. And so I guess she got everyone she knew and everyone they knew, and got them to get into their plaid shirts, and they rose out of the ground.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, maybe zombies were in fashion, but plaid wasn't.
It's a bunch of brawny zombies. It's kind of funny.
Well, I mean that's the thing. They're all wearing like jeans and plaid. It's when did they bury these people?
Yeah.
Well, the funniest thing about the missing ghost scene is that, and this is pointed out in the doc, if you look, there are a couple of scenes where people are standing around outside ducking something, but there's nothing coming at them. They're just kind of ducking and weaving with nothing in the sky.
There's a scene with Anthony and Charlotte when he runs out, and Anthony's ducking. As Anthony likes to say, he goes, "It looks like he was having convulsions or something."
And we actually, if you wait to the very, very end of the documentary, after the end credits are over, you might see a bit of ghosts in that scene. Just saying, if you watch the documentary, don't turn it off till the very end.
There we go. All right, post-credit scene. Love it. Love it. One thing that I always laughed at about the zombies when you brought up the plaid stuff is there's a scene where Maria is running around. Looks like she's running from around this big bush, and some of the zombies have bushes stuck on them, like I guess to hide them.
I never noticed that.
To tell the truth, I haven't gone through it in the new print yet. That whole sequence.
Oh no, you can see it
even in the old VHS. You could see some very questionable looking animatronic creature work, and a lot of that stuff is basically like just heads Arnold had in his workshop that they probably grabbed everything in his workshop and put it into that scene, including what I feel is the actual worst moment of the movie, which is when the zombie pops up and says "Mama."
Oh yes,
Mama.
We immortalized that in the opening montage on the documentary.
Yeah.
And then I forget if it was Vincent or someone else who posted this on Facebook, but the transfer is so good now. There's a shot of one of the puppets, and you can see Vincent in the background operating it.
In the bottom left, you can see him.
Who's another guy who I've known for many, many years. A really talented guy, and gave us a really good interview for the doc.
Oh man, yeah, no. My buddy was joking with me. He's like, "Your TV or the disc ruined Spookies." Like it was just he was kidding, because I mean the picture's clear. Like you can see extension cords running in the background. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But like it's it's real clear. It's not muddy at all.
Right. Well, there is a nostalgia factor for many people in terms of the visual quality, where they prefer to see it on an old picture tube in a bad VHS.
Yes, that's how I am. I'll take a muddy VHS any day. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's wonderful to have it brand new and clear and You can see everything, but yeah, no, like Night of the
No,
Living
I
Dead, I
admit for a
prefer that.
horror movie, especially, it lends a certain amount of atmosphere.
Yes, yes, it does.
Well, I remember when I was talking to someone, I think this was at Anchor Bay years and years ago when Blu-ray was starting to come up. I asked them if they were going to do The Evil Dead on Blu-ray, and they're like, "We're never going to do that on Blu-ray. It was shot on 16 millimeter. If you put that on high def, all you're going to see are the flaws."
Yeah.
But they did put it out on Blu-ray, and it does look great. But it is to that point that there's only so much you can clarify an image before things you're not supposed to see come popping out.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Because it's what
It's
Evil Dead.
remarkable that they can get as much as they have out of 16 millimeter films.
Yeah, I think if you have the negative, I think you can really make it look nice. So, yeah, I know they did Basket Case off. They eventually found the 16 negative, and they did another company did Basket Case, and it looks really nice.
Excuse me. Now, are there any plans for this to be like screened at, say, like the Adamo Draft House, or like some Halloween screenings or anything like that?
We are talking about arranging some screenings, but there actually are screenings going on this month and in other upcoming months. Yeah, go ahead. You were about to speak.
Yeah, we are working on. I can't say who it's with, but we are talking about doing a showing of the movie and the documentary at a festival. But I can't say what that is because it's still in very early talking stages.
No, that's great though. That's great.
But
Yeah.
there is, Vinegar Syndrome has made a bunch of their DCPs available for screening. So Spookies is starting to get out there and around to various venues across the country.
And one thing to keep in mind, if you see it, you're seeing it in 4K digital. The disc itself is remastered. It's a Blu-ray remastered from the 4K print, but the actual DCP prints that are being shown are in 4K.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then another remarkable fact, which I only found out a couple of weeks ago, is that apparently, and this must be due to a relationship with Vinegar Syndrome, because they're also screening Tammy and the T-Rex, but the Glasgow Film Festival in Scotland is showing Spookies in a sidebar program.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay.
Bradley will be right in the front seat.
Oh, yeah. I've got to let Keith know about this.
I mean, that's I saw that and it was like, gosh, how does this happen? I mean, it was just like a year ago where I was still hearing what I've heard for decades, which is what a piece of crap the film was.
Well, the film, I mean, it started to get a reputation in the last decade. I mean, Exhumed Films they used to do a 24-hour 35 millimeter horror festival every Halloween, and I was there for one where I think at 2 or 3 in the morning, and they never say what the titles are, and then at 2 or 3 in the morning, Spookies comes up. And everyone just started applauding.
But it's one of those movies that really sits well with an audience. I mean, when you sit it, and maybe there's places obviously that weren't intended to have laughs in it, especially since the movie, became sandwiched together with Eugenie's Joseph's cut and the Twisted Souls cut. But audiences really, from what I've seen now, have really seemed to enjoy it and laugh along with it, or laugh at it, maybe sometimes inappropriately, But
yeah, I've come to the conclusion that it works a lot better with a big audience. It really does. Because I think if you're watching it by yourself, you're sort of expecting it to be an actual movie and go someplace. And when like the plot, when the story keeps getting cut off to cut to another story every few minutes, and then a few minutes later cuts back to the other story, it's very disconcerting and frustrating. I think with an audience, it's like one visual non sequitur after another. So you just the laughter really is contagious in a crowd.
And I think also Peter Iacillo's stuff works really well with an audience. And he's the one thing in Twisted Souls who is supposed to be funny, and he really works with an audience.
Yeah, no, he does. I had quite a few Halloween parties in high school, and it was always in rotation because I recorded it off of TV. But USA played the crap out of this movie, and some of the other channels in Florida they would play it late at night, and it always got a good reaction at my Halloween parties, man. Like people love the shit out of this movie. They think, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I think it does play well for an audience, I mean, I'm sure beer helped a little bit.
Well, for many, many years, myself and my partners, we because it did nothing positive for our careers, it really hurt our future
Yeah, there was a
abilities
lot of
to
rotten
make
shit
films.
wrote about this movie online. There was a bunch
Yeah,
of
I
like
mean, well,
people
beyond
just
that, I mean, it's like
grilling
we
this
were
movie.
ashamed because it was not what we had intended. We didn't know how, in what context, to be able to show it to anybody as a sample of our
Yeah.
work. It was sort of a losing proposition.
Nah, it to me. I've always thought it was fun, man. Like I used to rent this video from the store all the time, all the time. Um, let's see. When I don't know if I asked this before. When it played, when it first premiered, yeah. What is the Delirium Award and how did it win it? Like what the hell is that? And I wanted to ask you about the poster, but yeah, go
I
ahead.
just
What the
want to highlight
fuck is the
something really
Delirium
quick.
Award? Like,
I think it's that I think they drug the judges.
uh, oh man.
I just want to highlight something really quick because for Mike and I, it's kind of funny because when we were going through the edit, we just had so many footage. We just kept coming back for. It seemed like every hour to this one quote Frank had where he talked about the Delirium Award. We're like, we want to include it. What the hell do we do and where do we put it? So I think it wound up in the deleted extras for the documentary. But it's so funny that you mentioned the Delirium Award.
The Delirium, I think it's Frank. It's an audience award, right? It was the audience award for
I,
favorite.
I have to assume it's the thing that gets that kind of like wild audience reaction. If you know what I mean, it's like we were just talking about that the audience just it's not a good movie necessarily, but the audience is having a great time and they just go with it.
Well, the Sitges audiences are notoriously vocal. I mean, if you go to any movie at Sitges, I'm told, and the audience just goes crazy and screams and yells, and I can just imagine them seeing Spookies at midnight, what the reaction must have been.
Right, right.
Wow, no, because I've like my girlfriend, we watched it a couple times and she'll sit there and give me shit about it, and I always tell her, well, it won the Delirium Award, and she always gives me shit about that,
Right? Didn't they use that at one point heavily in the marketing for the movie too?
Oh, it was in all the marketing for the movie after it happened. I mean, it was
used in the box, like
Sony Pictures that brought it out theatrically. It was on their poster. It was on all their video materials. It was. Let's put it this way. It was not as heavily emphasized in the UK marketing that Michael Lee did because Michael Lee did not. Despite the fact that he was made rich by videos, he had no idea how to market videos.
Mm.
Yeah, didn't he? I think he did get a Graham Humphreys piece of art for it, though. Graham Humphreys, the great British
for one of the many releases he did of it.
Yeah, there's several of them. I think we have a few of them in the doc, kind of scattered around.
Now, sorry about that. Excuse me. What was there some kind of tie up with Vibco over in like England? Because I remember
yes, Vipco was Michael Lee's company.
That was his company. Okay.
Oh yes.
Yeah, because it was
as
tied
I said,
up.
he got wealthy with the video nasty craze. It also gave him a lot of legal trouble, and he wanted to avoid that with a film that he was going to actually finance.
Okay. How were you guys aware of who Richard Corbin was when he did the poster for
Richard
Spookies?
Corbin, long before Spookies, is one of my favorite comics artists.
Yes,
I have
love
most of his work in my collection.
He did a couple of Lovecraft stories, and they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, so. No, I mean, I was shocked when they got him to do the poster. It was like, how could this have happened to the movie and they have this for the poster? I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not happy about the Creon aspect of the poster.
I was going to say, Creon is forever immortalized.
Yeah, it's emblazoned, huge. What did you think when you first saw it? Like when you first laid eyes on it, were you like, wow? Because it's a gorgeous piece of art.
I was like, I was sad. I was sadder about what had happened to the movie.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I remember when I found out Richard Corbin did the poster, I was just like, wow, I had all newfound respect.
I have heard from someone, and I have no idea if this is true, but that the original artwork for that is in the collection of Guillermo del Toro.
Oh wow.
Really?
Wow.
Who knows?
You have to ask Guillermo next time you run into him.
Next time I talk to my good friend Guillermo del Toro, I'll have to ask him about that.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that would be fascinating to know.
Yeah,
that would put Spookies up another notch in my.
Because he has everything else, so I wouldn't be surprised if he has that too.
Wow. Now, all right, let's see. Kind of running out of questions here. All right. Like I said, I asked you about when you first saw it. what's the story with the Muckmen? And I mean no disrespect at all when I ask this question. I just
Well, yes, you do have to respect the Muckmen.
cool as hell
You
looking.
mean you
Like
mean
when they bust,
specifically the you mean specifically the farting or the Muckmen
yeah.
themselves?
Like where did that come in? And like why? You know, I just don't know.
As was explained to you a little while ago, the Muckmen farting was put in by the sound editor. That was just meant as apparently that was put in as a joke by the sound editor. But Michael Lee, whose entire sense of humor revolved around farts, was thrilled
Uh,
with it, and so of course it stayed.
That's the one thing where I think, Eugenie Joseph might get a tiny bit of credit because it's long been kind of blamed on her. And they said, oh, Eugenie Joseph put this in, but the way the sound editor tells it is, as Frank just said, he put it in there as a joke. Michael Lee decided to keep it, and Eugenie got so upset that she and Mike got into a huge screaming match, and Michael Lee actually fired her for 24 hours.
Right.
So
okay.
that was
And then she gave in to the farting. So
that she didn't want the farts in there either.
yeah, and
Because
it's unfortunate because that scene actually is I think the monsters themselves are actually like fairly menacing. I mean, if you had the right music and effects track in there, it would convey that a lot better.
they're very terrifying and they're aggressive because the guy grabs the table and just flips it like it's
Yeah, there's
you
no
know,
reasoning with them. Or,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like I'll be honest with you, I'm a fan, but I can't stand that scene just because of the fucking party.
Well,
well,
especially the way they cut the
it's
scene.
kind of torture because that's the scene almost anybody who talks to me about the movie mentions, and they almost always tell me how much they love that scene.
Fucking hate it.
Well,
I fucking hate that scene. I'm serious, and it's just the sound effects because they're like you said,
yeah,
they're very menacing. And when he
well,
grabs
it
that
brings you out of the
pitchfork,
movie. Pulls you out
huh?
of But
Yes, it does.
even just like the spider sequence, like Frank was saying before, how they went and they re-edited it. If you talk to Nick Gianta and John Beatty, they'll tell the story too, how there were these awesome takes where they're flying across the room, and it was so much more involved, and Tom loved it, and then none of that made the screen. Eugenie Joseph cut out some of the best takes from their stunts that were in that scene.
Well,
From
there's this.
everything.
It's
She
mentioned more
cut.
than once in the doc. People think that she intentionally cut out some of Tom and Brendan and Frank's best stuff, just so maybe hers would look better or something.
Not even that it looks better. I mean, she just wanted more running time. That's really what it has to come down to. I don't know why you would cut out entire like effects moments that would have upped the quality of the film. It just doesn't make rational sense.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, the effects that you get in the movie are, I mean, they're beautiful. They're really cool to see, and there's like all kinds of creatures in it. Like it's everything in the kitchen sink. Um, there's that one creature
I
in the
have to give
hall,
that. That's one thing I'll give Michael Lee credit for. That's the movie he wanted us to make.
this giant creature feature, just
Yes,
everything. Yeah.
just
Um,
everything that could possibly fit into this movie he wanted in it.
Except for the
Of course,
gorilla.
yeah, right. Yeah.
and so, all right, so when the film ends, that's Creon. I guess he wins, huh? Because the thing I always thought was funny though is the grave is pulsing at the very beginning of the film, and then it's he busts out of it. How was it Twisted Souls was going to end? How was it you guys ended it before the
Well,
Creon?
in the existing version in Spookies, the primary characters or what's left of them, they go into the room, they fight the Grim Reaper, they come back inside, they find the demon downstairs, who's the character Carol,
Carol,
with
yeah,
the Ouija board, and she's sending out all this energy, and they start to age rapidly, and
yeah,
that's when you last see them. That sort of like presume that they age and die. In reality, they age. They wind up crawling outside into the cemetery at the rear of the house, and that's the point where all the ghosts are flying around, and there are demons and spirits and all these things, etc. And the house itself eventually. Let's see if I can explain this. There's a thing in there where there was actually a bottle with something in it, I forget what, that they throw at the Carol demon who's sitting in the room downstairs, and that's actually what sort of precipitates the destruction of the house. What happens is the thing hits her, she sort of goes into some kind of massive energy explosion or surge. They get out of the house itself sort of with optical effects sort of flares and surges, and eventually more or less evaporates, and then they're out in the cemetery and they turn young again.
If you look at the pinhead reel, you'll actually see a shot that was taken outside that's from one of those cut scenes with
right.
with one of them in the older age makeup than what you see in the Spookies cut outside. So you can see a little glimpse from what would have been part of one of those scenes.
Right. I didn't know that was in there until I saw it recently. So that
Yeah.
That actually is a little tiny bit of what that was like.
And one thing I think we should clarify for many Spookies fans who are listening is I don't believe any of that original Twisted Souls footage, other than Spookies and the Pinhead reel, exists anymore. I don't think it can be restored, so there could be like a completed Twisted Souls cut.
Well, we were in contact recently with the filmmaker that did the Vipco documentary that's also on this new Vinegar Syndrome release. And he's actually been still in contact with Michael Lee, and he went ahead and he asked Michael Lee, now whether this is true or not. Michael claims that he does not have any assets of the movie anymore. He doesn't know what happened to any of them. So whether or not that's the definitive word and that's the truth, that, you know, we have to assume that that's what it is. If it is, then nobody knows. I mean, for all we know, possibly Eugenie has some of this stuff. You know, it's actually, I just recently contacted her, and it's funny, I should have asked her that. Whether or not she knew what ever happened to any of it.
More likely she has her own footage that was not used as opposed to ours.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows what happens, or if it, you know, happened, or if it even exists. I mean, up until literally days before, you know, this was authored, the Pinhead reel with some of these outtakes and behind the scenes stuff was uncovered. And that was thought to be lost for the longest time. So who knows what's still out there?
Yeah, we had heard about it, and then we didn't think it was available. And then Brendan called me, like Glenn said, about a week before we wrapped. He's like, I found the Pinhead reel. I think John Donaldson had it or
Yeah,
something.
it was like sitting. It was sitting in
like under his bed or something like that.
Yeah,
and,
or in a storage facility or something like that.
And they just uncovered it, and Brendan's like, is there still time to get this in? And it's like, oh, we'll make sure there's time.
Yeah.
Wow. Now I was gonna say there's a video on YouTube. It's I have to go look it up again. If you want, I can send you guys a link to it. It's Twisted Souls, and I guess what they did was they took the copy of Spookies and they cut all the Twisted Souls footage out of it and put it together.
I can explain this.
Like, okay, go, yeah, because I was lost when I saw that.
A fellow who I have since come to know, it's an interesting story, and it actually has an interesting ending. A fellow named Dustin Ferguson. Perhaps you've heard of him. He makes he makes very low budget like horror movies, lots of them, over the course of a month even. But he's quite successful. He has a following, and he continues to make very small budgeted horror movies without stopping, it seems. But he because he was a fan of the movie, he actually owned for a time a VHS video store, sort of catering to fans, which a number of people around the country do. And he cut his own version of Spookies, meaning he took out every Jeannie Joseph shot and then put it out there as a bootleg, which was kind of touching as a fan thing. But my late partner Tom Doran was certainly not happy about it. He was just upset that his scenes were getting more mismanaged and I mean the fact that the additional scenes were chopped out did not really make the rest of the film work better in any way.
Well, so much of the connective tissue isn't in there is the problem.
Yeah.
I
mean, when you look at the script, there's a whole entire opening that explains a lot of the events and little intricacies that are in the movie later on. For example, Anthony Valvero's character, he's constantly sneezing. He sounds nasally. There's a whole explanation as to what the deal is with him, that, he's got allergies and he's got medicine. He spills them in the car. So, I mean, there's an entire sequence of events that takes place that was completely cut out. I mean, including the original opening with a character, which we show photos of in the documentary, and they go in and discuss Jakey, who, was later replaced by the Catman, and another fella that it's kind of leads you to believe that he either becomes the Catman or he's killed by the Catman. It's kind of a little ambiguous in the beginning of the final cut of Spookies.
A number of things in the new scenes, it was as if they had taken our original script and they did third or fourth rate ideas based on our ideas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was strange. For instance, there was originally in the opening sequences that were cut, there was an elaborately carved tombstone, the Grim Reaper holding like a baby in his arms, with the saying "Life so short, eternity so long," and we all thought this was great. We put it in the movie. It got taken out, and then in Jeannie Joseph's version, there's a scene where somebody's like running through. I think is it towards the climax? No, it's with Billy. I think he's running at the beginning, and he falls on the ground, and there's a little tombstone about a foot high that just says "Life is so short."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is where they were at. They were like ripping us off directly in a 10th rate way.
Oh man, wow. Yeah, because what was it? I first saw that on the Facebook fan page, the Twisted Souls / Spookies fan page. What was it? Oh man, you guys got me. I'm totally having a starstruck moment here. Let's see.
You're talking about you saw the grim tombstone that I was talking about?
No, it was the Twisted Souls cut that Dustin Ferguson
okay.
did. That's where I first saw it at. Because
and actually, and Dustin, the thing is, Dustin and I have since I'm friends with him for a while now, and he's always been a big supporter. And he's doing a zombie movie sometime this year, and he asked if he could put me on it as executive producer, meaning basically just ask for my name, and I gave it to him because he's been a big help.
Nah, that's great. That's great. I know there was another guy, he was doing a documentary on Vibco, but I'm not sure.
That's on the disc. That's on Vinegar Syndrome.
On the disc.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, see, I haven't gotten mine yet, so it's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what was it? Yeah, when the disc came out from Vinegar Syndrome, like it just shot up. Like I remember looking them up on eBay, and they were going for like $100.
Well, you get them now. The general release is out and they're available.
But like,
and they're on Amazon, I believe now too.
Yeah, well, I think Amazon on the 25th, which I guess is tomorrow, it goes on sale at Amazon.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Everyone listening to this must know that.
I was going to say, you can't get the limited edition slipcase any longer, but you can get the regular release. And it's exactly the same disc. It just doesn't have this special slipcase.
Yeah. All right. And what was it? Something else I was going to ask you guys. It stinks because I have all you guys right here, and I can't think of anything. What's next? Because you guys have some projects in the pipeline. So what is it? Can you talk about any of it? Like.
Can't say, but Glen and I have been working on another featurette about a very popular horror film that I think a lot of the fans are going to be excited about when they hear it. I don't know when it's going to be announced.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even hint what it is, but it's a pretty big one. So stay tuned on that.
And then recently from Vinegar Syndrome, Flesh Eating Mothers came out that Mike and I both contributed some of the extras on. And then also from Severn Films, The Astrologer, which is that actually out now or is it coming out any day?
That'll be out, I think tomorrow is the street date.
And Frank and Brendan actually worked on that too.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Wow, okay.
Apparently we're the last surviving members of the crew.
I talked to Severn and they said they're doing The Astrologer, and I was like, that's great. That all shot in New York City and Westchester.
I think it actually might come out tomorrow.
Yeah. And then we actually did a presentation on Westchester horror films at the Sleepy Hollow Film Festival last year, and we talked about The Astrologer, and Frank was like, oh, we worked on that too.
I don't think there's much that you guys haven't worked on in New York.
No, there's plenty. Believe me, I find out new movies all the time that I didn't even know were made in New York.
And I was like, really? So we got Brendan and Frank together, and I just read a review that says the featurette with you guys is longer than the featurette with the director of The Astrologer.
Oh.
So.
Oh, wow.
Wow, cool.
You guys told some great stories on that.
No,
Others is out. Astrologer is out tomorrow, and then this other big one probably by the end of the summer. Okay. So, in fact, I was just shooting a bit of it this afternoon.
And we're in the middle of another project too with Vinegar Syndrome too that will be out sometime this year.
Yeah, they haven't dated it yet, so.
So yeah, we've got, and actually we're going in and working on yet another large project in May.
Yep.
So it's been keeping the juices flowing.
It's great.
Yeah,
All
guys,
the movies that
yeah,
shot in the
busy.
New York
That's
area have been coming out on Blu-ray, giving us this opportunity.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great to hear. And it's cool, like all these little, kind of unknown little fan secret movies are finally getting some light shown on them.
Yeah, well, there was this is not a story to tell the entire thing now, but one of the first ones that I worked on with Vinegar was The Undertaker, the Joe Spinell film, which Glenn actually introduced me to, and years later, I finally got to contribute to the disc of that when that finally came around.
Yep.
Wow, no, that's great because it was over the summer when we started doing the horror show, the horror podcast. I told a bunch of people in a bunch of horror pages on Facebook about Spookies, and now everybody's a fan. So it's just kind of funny. But
well,
yeah,
continue to tell people.
Oh no, absolutely. I'll tell people till I'm in the ground.
Yeah.
I think it really benefits from knowing the backstory. In fact, I might almost suggest that people watch the documentary first and then see the movie that resulted, and you'll have more of an appreciation for how the movie came out the way it was.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Because I always tell people about this movie, and I say, look, man, it was a fucking horror show behind the scenes. And
well,
then,
the thing is,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's just, there were so many rumors. You can still find so many things online that say it was two separate movies that were combined. And, part of the reason we wanted to do this was to clarify exactly what went on. It's like, it was not two different movies. This is how the production happened. And just to get the straight story out there.
Yeah, no, it's good because there's a lot of fans that were really wanting to hear it, really wanting to find out exactly what went down.
And this is really, this is the coherent version, the most coherent version of the story. There have been attempts to tell it before, but I think this covered so much more ground and took it from so many perspectives. Although I've noticed there are people who have reviewed the recent disc and apparently not seen the documentary because they're still telling all the old background stories.
Yeah.
Well, there's certain Blu-ray reviewers who I don't think bother to watch the special features. They'll review the movie, run a list of the special features, and call it a day. And as a producer of such things, that can be kind of frustrating.
Okay, yeah, no, because a lot of them just watch the film and throw it out there. No, you're right.
And I personally I don't understand that. With a company like Vinegar Syndrome and some of the others, they're designed for collectors. They're for people who have an actual interest in movies.
Well, it's the media, right? Or it's that format. You know what I mean? Have to buy a disc and have as much stuff as you could humanly have about that
like
film.
The definitive.
Watch all the cool stuff.
Definitive take on the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how I am. I'm voracious with it. Like, just tell me everything about the movie. So, yeah.
And this is a good opportunity, too, because it really, like Mike said, it really clarifies a lot of things. It's even like, for example, we did for Arrow last year, it was the end of 2018, going to the beginning of 2019, was Alice, Sweet Alice. And you search the internet, and there are so many rumors and false misinformation that's on there. We had a hell of a time even shooting locations because there was just so much misinformation out there on it. But, with the locations featurettes and things that we did, it was an opportunity to kind of set it straight.
Well, that's the thing. It's like on Alice, Sweet Alice, the main church exterior, there are so many sources online that will tell you it was one of two places, neither of which is correct. And I actually found out from a trivia fan friend where it really was shot. But then more recently, I did liner notes on House by the Cemetery for Blue Underground, debunking a major rumor that has gone around about that movie. And two of the reviews of the disc I've read perpetuate that myth because they apparently just didn't bother to read the liners and find out that this rumor is not in fact true.
Yep.
So, that's the kind of, if featurettes get ignored a lot, liner notes get ignored even more.
Well, the funny thing was, even case in point, I was involved, or we were almost involved with another podcast that was out there that perpetuated rumors on about even the creation of the documentary, for the Spookies disc. And when we clearly in our running commentary that's attached to the documentary talk about the process of creating it, and had they listened to it, it would have dispelled all those rumors that they perpetuated. And so it's like, it drives us nuts when we see that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah, I don't understand most of these movies are favorites anyway. You figure the people reviewing them have already seen the movie. And when they get the disc, they would want to watch the new stuff, all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
That's
And
what I'm saying. You would
some
wanna
sites clearly do, and some sites clearly do not. You can tell after you read a few of their reviews.
Wow. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I don't know.
Well, they don't know. I mean, in this particular case, the documentary complements the film so well that I feel that they're really necessary. They have to come together.
Companion piece. You know what I mean? And just watch one and then have to watch the other. Absolutely.
So it's a question for you.
Go ahead. Oh, by all
So I'm
means.
sure Frank would love to hear this one too. I'm curious. So as a big fan of Spookies, what would you be interested in more? A sequel, a prequel, or a movie that's about the making of it? Not the documentary, something that's actually like a making of the movie.
Part 2.
Yeah, basically.
A sequel, a prequel, or making
or a movie that's actually where you kind of relive through actors, like the Disaster Artist. It's the movie.
I had an idea. This was like a couple months ago. I said to the co-host who isn't with us tonight, Casey. I had mentioned to him about the movie Tropic Thunder. Do you remember that movie Tropic Thunder?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I pitched him an idea, which I don't know why I did this because I don't own anything for Spookies. But I said to him, wouldn't it be cool to see a movie like Tropic Thunder, but it would be about the making of Spookies? And he just busted out laughing. He thought that was hysterical. Again, we wouldn't be cracking on the movie, not at all, but we would just be showing you like just shit going wrong, just bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to tell the truth, this is an idea that I had in the midst of making Spookies, because it was just becoming so difficult to get through every day that I said, well, if I ever get through this, this is going to make a great screenplay. And I have actually a few bits and pieces of it, but I never pursued it after the drama that followed. But I certainly think it could be a reasonably commercial feature film. It would be a comedy, of course, because I couldn't bear to see it as a drama.
So who would play you in the movie, Frank?
That's a really good question. Well, I don't know, because I'd have to be like 30 years younger, so I couldn't play it. I don't know. I'd really have to give that some thought. It's not something I've ever actually been asked before.
It'd be interesting. Who would play you? Who would play Tom? And who would play Brendan?
And who would play Michael Lee?
Oh God!
We need a good British character actor to come in and play Michael Lee.
You could put Tom Cruise in a fat suit and play Michael Lee.
Well, I should mention, in light of what you just said, that I actually am working on a potential sequel or follow-up, at least, to Spookies.
Hey, all right. Right.
Yeah, which I've gotten actually
positive
feedback all around on. But we want to do something more than anything else. I mean, Brendan Faulkner and myself want to try and do something that is going to show you what we are capable of, as opposed to just trying to follow up Spookies. Because Spookies was a compromised movie from the very first step, and the fact that we got it finished was remarkable. But then the fact that it was taken away and refinished and turned into something else, I mean, there's nothing in there that we want to claim as our own. So we need to make our own new movie.
I can understand that. I can definitely hear that. That would be my pick. I would have a movie made about the making of Spookies. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my pick too, but I think that's going to be maybe a little ways down the line. I think that's going to be harder to sell people on than a sequel.
The K-State is still standing. You could go back and shoot there.
Yeah. Hey, I'll come up from Florida and help out.
Well, that's one great thing is I've discovered via Facebook that hundreds of spooky fans and like people who make a big deal about what fans they are in the entertainment and the film industry. They're effects people, they're actors, they're stunt people. I had the guy who played one of the heads of the CGI Ghidorah in the last Godzilla movie, saying he can't wait to play a monster in the Spooky sequel.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, that's the thing, is that like most of the effects people on Spookies went on to do a lot of great work. Jennifer Aspinall's won Emmys. Gabe Bartalos has worked for years. John Dodds went on Broadway and did Beauty and the Beast and Young Frankenstein.
And Vincent Guastini.
Yeah, Vincent Guastini works constantly, so it was a real.
Yeah, I don't know how we scored that big. I mean, we really picked the people that would matter years later.
Well, it was very influential, man, because it was all the practical effects. There's a lot of people.
And I have to. This is something I've only really noticed recently. I recently have been like retouring a lot of these old creature and monster effects movies of the same period, including like the Ghoulies movies, which were part of the thing we were supposed to be ripping off with Twisted Souls. But our effects beat the shit out of anything in any of the movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And probably on a lower budget too.
Oh, well, from what I know, the Ghoulies, the first two cost $1 million each. I mean, we did it on about a third of that budget.
Yeah.
As John Dodds likes to say, he said it's an '80s rubber monster fest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is part of its strength, because people love, as John Dodds says, people love rubber.
That's good. That's good. Now, let's see. What was it? Hey, if you need a new Grim Reaper for Spookies 2, I'm your man. Let me know.
Well, it's interesting because there is a potential Grim Reaper, but it may not be something a human can play.
Oh, okay. I see. Listen, I dressed up like the Grim Reaper for 2 years for Halloween because of that movie. So.
Do you have a picture?
I can. Yes, I can dig one out of the box and send
I'd
it
love
to
to see it.
Yep. You can see my neon Reeboks under my robe, but I'm on the porch.
No, because it's interesting because the Grim Reaper and Spookies is something that I constantly read or hear very complimentary things about. Yes. And occasionally I'll read something that says it looks like garbage and you can see right through the bones.
Awesome. Awesome, man. No, yes. Give me a day or two. I'll dig the photo out and send it to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, well, listen, gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough. This has been a pleasure. Is there anything else you guys want to throw out while you have the floor?
Just that you should interview us again after more stuff has happened.
And stay till the very end of the doc. After the credits are over, you will get a little surprise.
That's right. Watch the doc until post-credit scene, guys. That's fantastic. Well, again, my name is Slinky, and I cannot thank you guys enough for hanging out with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
No, absolutely. I want to extend an open invitation for you guys. So whenever you have a project or anything that's coming up, if you want to pop in and hang out and tell us about it, just hit me up, man. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Yeah. So, but again, thank you guys so much, man. I can't, this is you guys are like stars to me. So this is really cool. This is really cool.
Well, you are like a fan to us.
I'll take it. So, but yeah, thanks again so much, man. And what I'll do is when I post it, I'll let you guys know, and I'll tag you. And all that
please.
Stuff.
Yeah. Do you have? Are we Facebook friends?
Yeah, we are. I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And if not, you can find me. I'm friends with Frank and Glen, so you can just friend request me through them.
Okay, yeah, sounds good, man. Sounds good.
And Greg, this has actually been a really good interview. It's like you actually got some good conversation stirred up.
Hey, thank you. I mean, because I was sitting here sweating balls for a minute. I didn't know what the hell. I was like, fuck, I got him on the phone. What am I doing? So, but
we love to talk, no. So you just wind us up and let us go.
See, this is the best part about being stars is you can terrify people.
Oh, hands were shaking and oh no. But no, seriously, anytime you guys want to come on the show, let me know. We'll have you on.
Oh,
you guys are horror royalty. So
I think when you hear about what Glenn and I are working on now, eventually you'll probably want us to come talk about that.
Yeah.
I wish I could say more, but it's pretty big.
Well, the astrologer comes out tomorrow.